the word journal can strike fear into any accounting system user. But let's have a look at what a journal is, how we enter a journal into the system, and typically when they might be used. So if we go to the plus sign in the top left here, where all our manual transaction types are, we've got under Other there, on the final column we've got the journal entry screen there, and that's where we can go in and we get a journal entry screen where we can enter data in. So what is a journal entry? In effect, a journal entry allows us to post new transactions, perhaps corrections to transactions, perhaps accruals, prepayments, entries for payroll. So typically entries where we haven't got a screen that QuickBooks has given us to enter data in, we would need potentially to use a journal entry form. So if we've got a bank account involved, typically we will have a form that we can use which would not be a journal entry. But there are occasions where there's no other option but to journal a particular transaction, and that will be true of accruals, prepayments, payroll journals. All would require a journal entry if we to enter in. And if we're entering a journal entry in, we would pick a date for the journal, and it's asking us to pick the accounts that are relevant. But it's getting quite technical because it's then asking us to pick a debit or a credit. So the work that QuickBooks normally does behind the scenes of an entry where it gives you a form to enter, you're being asked to populate in here with the correct information on a debit and credit basis. So it does take some understanding of accounts in the background to create a journal, which is why it does tend to strike fear into some QuickBooks users. If I just close that screen down, let's have a look at an example of a journal that's already in the system. If I go to my little looking glass, the last entry in here is a journal. If I click on there, this is a particular journal for depreciation. So this is entering depreciation into expense accounts to charge the depreciation, and then it's reducing the value of my asset, my office equipment. So again, we're not in this particular area of the course focusing on when it's a debit, when it's a credit. We're just looking at the fact that this journal screen does exist and it does have its uses in terms of certain types of transaction that we need to input into here. We have got a reverse button at the bottom of our journal, so there will be certain instances of journals where we might want to reverse a journal, which would then date it the beginning of the next month, and it would switch round the debits and the credits to reverse out the entries that were done on the original journal. And there are some instances where that can be very useful within the QuickBooks file. There'll be more in the course on actually how to use a journal, when to use a journal, when is it a debit, when is it a credit. But that's just really an overview of what a journal entry does and the instances where you might find it beneficial to use journal entries. They're not typically the day-to-day entries that you would see, and many QuickBooks users would not use them or very rarely use them over a year of transacting in QuickBooks.